All right, welcome to my next video. Glad you could be here. Let's talk a little bit about anxiety, something that's really going to be high on people's minds these days with all the COVID stuff going on and all the political drama and everything else. And I just want to again share my experiences. I'm not a qualified psychologist. I'm just a guy who's gone through a lot of anxiety in his life and has taken steps through mindfulness and meditation to overcome that. And I just want to share my experiences. So if that helps you on your journey, then that makes me happy. So the first thing with anxiety, once you've recognized it, is even before you go into steps to heal yourself, the first thing you have to tell yourself is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And that's, I think, one of the biggest hurdles that people initially have to overcome is there's a huge judgment and self-punishment about what, why you can't go face this, or why you can't walk down the street, or why you can't go, you're not comfortable going into your work or facing someone, or whatever the anxiety is for you. There's an associated judgment that there is something wrong with you, and there isn't. And if you think something's wrong with you, that is the first step to leading you down a path that will take you off in another direction. Whereas if you right from the bat understand that there's nothing wrong with you and you're not broken, that takes you in a path that goes on another direction. And so understanding that right from the beginning is probably one of the most important things, is just how you choose to label and perceive this moving forward really dictates how your healing process happens and where you go on that healing process. So instead of thinking that there's something wrong with you, it's better just to look at the mechanics of what's happening inside in the mind and the body and just label it as such. It sort of detaches you from that judgment of having to be fixed. So the first thing with the mechanics is that we have to look at how mind and emotions in the body are generated. And so you start with a thought in your head, and that thought, if repeated over and over and over again, starts to build up a charge in the body, an energetic charge. And if you keep obsessively or incessantly thinking about something that's usually a fearful outcome that you have not experienced yet, that builds up charge. And the more you think about it, the more that repeats, the higher the charge gets, the more it feels like it's real or it's going to be the truth, even if it's not. And so the thought starts, and that thought repeats in the body, and that builds up an emotional charge, which is then stored in the body. And now and this is across the board with any emotion, just not anxiety. If your willpower is only, at a certain level, and you start thinking about a fearful outcome and a fearful outcome and a fearful outcome, and you keep doing that in your mind, eventually the charge, which is this side, builds up higher and higher. It's going to be greater than your willpower's ability to manage. And so what happens is eventually is the emotion just overtakes you, and it's almost like you're not in control of your behavior anymore, which is true. But in another way, the thoughts that started that behavior were also yours. And so if you just look at the mechanics of it, it's just a repetitive, fearful thought, usually about some future consequence or event that you haven't experienced yet. And that thought, even if you're not aware of it, has been repeating so much that it goes down into the unconscious and the subconscious, and it just spins ad nauseum. It just keeps cycling over and over and over again beyond your level of awareness, and keeps building up all of these emotional charges in your body, which causes the physical symptoms of the anxiety. So that's sort of the mechanics of it. And again, going just back to how you label this, anxiety is just one emotion on a spectrum of all emotions, right? I mean, of anger, of grief, of shame, of joy, of excitement. There's a whole spectrum. And any of those emotions at any time, when they override and charge up enough in your body, your willpower's ability to manage, or channel will overtake you and will put you into action against your will, and not always to your benefit. Sometimes it is if it's positive emotion. So it's just overwhelming thought processes repeating and high levels of emotion that you haven't gotten control of yet. And here's the thing, if you let that fear get the better of you, and you say, for example, you get anxious about just walking down the street because there's so much COVID going on, and you don't want to get that and get sick. That's the fear, even if you don't have COVID in the present moment. What happens is you think about that, and it stews and it builds. But the moment that you decide, I'm not going to go outside because of COVID, immediately you have given power away to the thought, to the idea which has caused the fear in the first place. So how you label this is important, but the other aspect of overcoming your anxiety is also about how much power you give into those thoughts, and reclaiming your power back and mastering those thoughts and those emotions and taking control. So you have to look at how much power you're giving away to that. And every day you decide you do not want to go outside because of COVID, every day you give a little bit more power into that idea and that thought. And that keeps building and that keeps building until the point where that thought and that feeling have so much control over you that you just don't even want to go outside anymore, because the thought and the emotion have built up so much charge in your body that it seems so real and it seems so scary and so fearful that you just can't face it. And so you continue to stay in, and you continue to give more power to those thoughts and those feelings, and it just creates a downward spiral over time. So with anxiety in particular, there's a huge lesson here in terms of self-empowerment and taking your own power back and building confidence in yourself and your ability to manage and navigate life. Now that we've covered that, let's just move into some techniques and tricks to help you diffuse the anxiety and settle your body and your mind down, and sort of retake your power and not let those anxieties overcome you. So the prime way that helped me was through meditation. And the main lesson to learn here is the connection between your breath and your mind. Whenever you breathe shallow, repeated breaths through your chest and the top of your chest and not your belly, your mind is automatically going to speed up, and you're automatically going to feel symptoms of anxiousness coming on. Whenever you breathe slow, deep belly breaths and slow the breathing down for a period of time, that automatically will calm the mind down. Now, not right away. This does take practice and it does take time, but the breath controls the mind, and the mind can also control the breath. It goes both ways. But you can settle your mind down through a deep, regular breathing practice. And if you get your breathing down for about 4 or 5 breaths a minute, that for about 15 to 20 minutes, that is really going to settle the body down quite a bit. Because with anxiety, your body and your mind are polarized into a state of hyperness. There's just too much energy. There's excess energy in a belief of a negative fear attached to that excess energy. So you've got to learn to settle yourself down as a practice, breathing either sort of a 6-second inhale, 6-second exhale. That would give you sort of 5 breaths a minute, or you could do 4-second inhale, 4-second pause, 4-second exhale, 4-second pause. You could do those breathing patterns. Either one of them are fine. And if they're too hard for you to get, these should be relaxed breaths. You can bring the time down a bit on each of them. But if you bring your breathing down to 4 or 5 breaths a minute for 15 to 20 minutes, doing that daily and practicing that, you should be able to learn to settle yourself down a little bit over time. It will take a few months, but as a regular practice, this is probably one of the most fundamental things that anyone can do to sort of help bring their mind down and bring their body back to center. So once you've done that and you've practiced this for a little bit, the next thing to do is to actually when you feel the anxiety or the panic coming on is to actually then go and do your breathing practice when that happens. And you want to do this because you want to start to learn and observe the different sensations that you're feeling in your body. Because, and this is what happened with me, there's a certain level of progression of the emotions as they get higher and higher and higher. And with anxiety, the first level is always just hesitation and doubt. There's not a lot of charge in your body at that point. And then the next level, you get up to restlessness, you get up to agitation, you get up to nervousness, and you will feel the charge building in your body, and you'll notice the symptoms. Your body will get all squirmy, your leg might start just moving or kicking on its own, or you'll just feel very fidgety. And then as the anxiety starts to come on, you may get the charge is building up even more, and you want to notice what those symptoms are in your body. Do you get butterflies in your stomach? Do you furrow in your head? Do you just start incessantly cleaning or doing something that always comes on as a physical symptom, so you can recognize it and note it and remember that, because that will become very important later on. And then the final level, of course, after you go through anxiety, is sort of when the full-on panic attack comes. And at this point, the charge has built up in your body so much that you don't have any control anymore. And so I just want to say it's really important to get what's happening in your body at the lower levels, so you can then become aware of that and then deal with those symptoms when they come up at the lower levels, because then you know your willpower will be a little bit stronger in those moments. And so once you're at sort of doubt and hesitation, it's fine. Once you get to anxiety, once you're in the level of doubt and hesitation, you can sort of breathe your way through that and maybe do some mindfulness and some breathing exercises, and that can be enough to dispel that. But once you get up to the level of anxiety, the breathing isn't always enough. Sometimes you actually have to learn to channel that, because the charge is building up and building up in your body. Once you get to the level of anxiety, then learning to channel that into motion or action can be an incredibly powerful way to not let that anxiety overcome you and take control. And then once it gets to a full-on panic attack, there's so much charge in your body that you don't have any control anymore. The issue with that, and the thing you have to be mindful of, is afterwards not to judge yourself as it being wrong, or something is wrong with you, or you've got a disease or something. The main thing here is just to look at it and label it in neutral terms, because really when you have a panic attack, that is your body trying to discharge the excess energy that has built up in your system through the incessant thinking that's happening over and over again, either on a conscious or subconscious level. So if you have that panic attack afterwards, and this is where I fell short a lot, is I would always judge myself and criticize myself, and oh my God, this is the worst ever, and I'm terrible, and what's wrong with me? I'm, judging myself. But if you just look at it in the neutral terms, in terms of excess energy being discharged from the body, that will help you pull away from the judgments and the control that the anxiety has over you. Okay, and so once you've practiced this over time and learning to just go and lay down and breathe and explore the body sensations, when you feel your anxiety coming on, you become very, very familiar with those sensations. For me, it was always butterflies in the stomach. Was the level where I could manage it, and then if it got beyond that, then I couldn't, and it would get out of control. So you want to build up sort of an idea of what sensations and symptoms in your body you know that you can manage, and the symptoms and sensations that start to come on when you can't. And once you have an idea of that in your head, then when you are navigating your day, you pay attention to that. And when you go into different situations, you see when these sensations come up in your body, and you know whether you're able to handle them or you have to pull away and regroup and figure it out later. So just becoming aware of those sensations in your body is very key. And now once you practice this for a while over time, then you start to pay attention to the thought that then becomes associated with the sensation. And so when I would have butterflies in my stomach as a sensation, then I could always lay there and say, okay, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? What am I thinking? And it may not always be apparent right away, again, because these can be subconscious thoughts. And that's why you pay attention to the situations you go in through the day to see when these sensations come up. So the next step is using your breath to hold your center when you deliberately choose to go into situations that give you anxiety. And this is the key. You have to go into these scenarios and you have to go into these situations and to face whatever it is that you're worried about, but you have to do it at a level that you're comfortable doing. So, for example, if in the example I gave earlier, if you're just worried about going outside because of COVID, let's say there's a store that's 1,000 feet away from you and you decide you want to test that, breathe, center yourself, go out, walk down the street. If you can't make it to the store, you can only go 500 feet instead of 1,000. Once you get to that point where you know the body sensations start to become overwhelming and you're going to go into panic, back up a bit, stop, focus on your breath. Slow your breathing down and focus on nothing but your breath and detach from the thoughts of whatever fears and anxieties are going to happen. And then bring yourself back to center. If you can't do it, then turn around, go home, and then try it again the next day. And you keep repeating that, and every time you go just a little bit further, 520 feet, 600 feet, 700 feet, until you can do that full 1,000 feet to the corner store or whatever it is. This is just one example, but you have to go and actually take action and do that. And this is how you dispel the thoughts in your head, because the thoughts in your head have become so powerful and so overwhelming that they've taken charge. The only way to diffuse that when they're at a high level is through direct experience of the opposite. So when you walk 500 feet down the street and you see nobody's around and it's not possible for you to get COVID, you have to tell yourself that. You have to talk and dialogue to the part of yourself that is so afraid of getting COVID. Look, no one's around. This isn't happening right now. I can't get sick. I'm just going to breathe through it, and I'm going to wait till I come back to center. And then if I want to move forward, I can. If I want to turn around and go home, I can. But you have to do all that type of self-dialogue and self-talk, because you are actually negotiating and talking with a non-integrated part of your mind. There's a fractured aspect of your mind that is in such fear it almost develops its own personality. And you have to talk with that and negotiate with that within yourself. And so as you continue to repeatedly have direct experiences where you are facing your anxiety, let's say walking down the street and getting COVID, the more you repeat that over time through direct experience, the more another part of your mind will arise and come forward and say, look, maybe what I was thinking was actually it was kind of bullshit. It wasn't really true. As long as I'm safe and following the guidelines, then I'm actually starting to feel safe. And you start to negotiate with that part of yourself, and you dialogue with yourself, and you pat yourself on the back and reward yourself every time you do something like this. And you continue to notice how this part of your mind that will start to build confidence and disbelieve the other thoughts and disempower the fearful thoughts, that you now start to diffuse that, and they start to no longer have as much control over you, until you get to the point where you can go to the corner store, buy something, come back to the house, and you might feel nervous about it, but you're not in full-on anxious mode or full-on panic attack mode. But it's just a little bit at a time, and really be honest about where you are at and how much you can handle. Because if you try and throw yourself into a situation that's too much, panic attack comes on and you're just not going to be able to deal with it. It will just reinforce, and you will probably judge yourself, as I did, as a failure, and it will just throw you into a downward spiral. So small baby steps here are very important. So what this part of the practice is just a present moment practice. And this is very, very strong and powerful to overcome anxiety, because you will find most of your anxieties are about things that have not happened. Things that are going to happen, maybe they'll happen in the next day or two, but they're always at some point in the future. And the present moment practice and just stopping and breathing and looking around and noticing the discrepancy between how your thoughts are drifting off into the future and how that is so terribly disjointed from what you are from what is around you in the present moment. If you're just in your bedroom or living room, but you find yourself drifting off into worries about, whatever political stuff or whatever COVID stuff is going on, turn the TV off, go back, come back to your room and just breathe and be in the present moment, and that's it. And notice the difference between your mind and what's going on in the present. And usually that is a very good way to rein yourself back in. And again, it's not about suppressing the thoughts, it's just about not letting them control you and diffusing them. And over time, through this present moment practice, as you go throughout the day, you can actually then notice these thoughts as they arise and just let them pass without having any control over you. Oh my God, I might get COVID. Okay, I see that, and your mind spins like that for a bit, but you don't pay too much attention to it. You notice it, go back to your breathing, go back to your center, and it disappears on its own, and then another thought will come up. And so the present moment practice is very, very powerful for overcoming anxiety and not letting those fears and charges build up in your body that much. So what a lot of this comes down to is believing in yourself and having confidence in yourself. When I had anxiety and panic attacks, I really did not trust myself. At a deep level, I did not believe that I could handle whatever life had to throw my way, and I would just let those fearful thoughts overcome and bury me. And I know how it is. It's not a pleasant experience, but the more you can repeat little small victories over time, the more it can build your confidence, the more you can believe in yourself. And you can have a mantra for this if you want, when you are going into situations where you are facing nervousness, hesitation, doubt, or a little bit of anxiety. As you breathe and center yourself, you do say to yourself, I got this, I can do this, I believe in myself, I can do anything I put my mind to, whatever you want. Even if you don't believe it in the beginning, the more you repeat it, the more that will drill into your mind and your subconscious mind. And it's just basically a way of reprogramming your brain to think in a different way. And you just keep doing that until it becomes your autopilot thought. And the more it becomes your autopilot thought, the more you start to believe in it, and it starts to become your way. Okay, so over time, when you do this, the gift here, of course, is that you do start to believe in yourself over time. You start to develop self-confidence over time. You never 100% eliminate anxiety. But what you can, because it's an emotion. It's like any other emotion in the body. And if you eliminate your emotions, you're just not human anymore. And so the way to cope with this over the long term is to build that self-awareness and know when you're at doubt, when you're at hesitation, that's when you deal with it. And you keep your awareness so in tune with your center of being that when you stay in the center, that when you come too far off, a little far off into doubt and hesitation, okay, I know if I don't deal with this issue now, the anxiety is going to build, and I know if I don't deal with it then, it's going to turn into a panic attack. So you just make sure that you are aware enough of your state of being over time that you keep yourself in the center. So the energetic charges from those fearful thoughts never build up in your body into a level where you lose control. So the emotion of nervousness and hesitation and anxiety will always be there, but you can keep yourself centered enough so they don't overrun you. That's the coping mechanism over time. And the longer you do this, the more you actually start to change your frame of mind in the long run, that when you notice the nervousness or the hesitation or the doubt come up, you look at that and you say, okay, this is just telling me there's a situation that I don't believe in myself, that I don't trust myself, that I am not confident in myself enough to handle, and then you go ahead and you move into that situation anyways, and you just keep repeating that over time until your confidence builds up enough that you start to see the butterflies in the stomach or the shaking of the hands or the tremors or whatever. You see that is your body's way of telling you that here, this is something that I have to face, that I have to move into, because there's a lesson that I need to learn here. There's a growth opportunity for me, and it's not going to be comfortable, but I'm going to get better and stronger from it and come out the other side a much better person, because I know if I submit to that and I let it control me, I'm just going to get myself farther and farther and farther down the rabbit hole to a point where I may not be able to pull myself out. It becomes a really tough spot at that point. So there's no suppressing or getting rid of the anxiety completely. It's just you just develop tools, coping tools, to deal with it over time, and it just becomes another part of life and another aspect of any other emotion that you feel on the spectrum of emotions that make you human. So I think that's about it. So if you have any questions, please leave them below. I think there's a lot of people out there right now that are definitely suffering from some anxiety in these times. Very stressful. There's a lot more to it than that. What this video was about was just primarily about the mental game. There's also things you can do in your diet, things you can do in your lifestyle and your environment to help as well for another video. But for now, that's the mental game. So practice that, practice the breathing, practice the present moment, practice. Don't judge yourself too hard. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just another lesson or challenge that you have to learn to grow and become a better person. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Much love to everyone, and take care. Hey everyone, welcome to my next video. It's Dave here, and this is going to be part 2 of how to deal with anxiety. This was probably one of the biggest hurdles I had to get over in my life. Was just a constant anxiousness about everything. It took a long time to get over, and I just want to share my thoughts. Part 1 of this video, if you haven't seen it, is just about the mental game and meditation and what to look for in your mind and how to settle the mind down. This is part 2. It's going to be more about the lifestyle considerations, diet, exercise, supplements, just all sorts of relationships, job, all sorts of things to take into consideration in terms of the grander picture to get yourself balanced. I don't want people to think that they can just take a pill or a supplement like magnesium or herbal supplements or something, and that's going to help them with their anxiety. The way that helped me, that I had to look at it, was I had to look at the overall picture in the scales of balance. And if you're calm and centered right here, the scales of balance for everything has to be shifted. And when you're in anxiety, you are in a very, very hyper state. Your mind is hyperactive, your body is wound up, your nervous system is wound up, everything in your body is tense, and there's just a general, there's a lot of adrenaline flowing, and there's, your stimulating hormones are just way out of control. And so you really, really have to look at the overall picture of your life and learn to slow things down and take yourself back into a balanced, calm, and peaceful state. It takes practice and it takes time, but it's not just one thing. There's a whole bunch of little factors that you do a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and all of these different areas of your life, and the cumulative effect over time is very, very strong and powerful and can help you quite a lot. So let's take a look at some of this. So just general speed of your life has to slow down if you are a hyper busy person. If you're not busy at all and you're still having anxiety, then it's more in the mind, but there's still a lot you can do for it. But the overall speed of your mind and or your body or your life just has to just settle down. And to do that, let's first look at exercise. Exercise should be calming exercises. Stretching, massage, I know massage is not really an exercise, but there's still movement a little bit in it, but it is something that brings you down. Meditation, deep breathing. Breathing is something that can really, really help settle the mind down and help settle the body down. Any type, yoga is good, any type of activity which helps bring you more towards relaxation rather than excitation. So you actually do want to avoid high intensity exercise because your body's already hyperstimulated and your mind's already hyperstimulated. Anything that's really intense is going to exacerbate that hyperstimulation. And so no high intensity exercise. If you feel anxiety coming on and it's coming to the point where you can't manage it or control it through breathing, it's starting to take control, the best thing that you can do is to move your body at low intensity for longer duration. And so what this means is taking a long walk. Hiking is really good. Going out for maybe a light bike ride or something, but something that is going to take a while, because once the anxiety comes on, you're going to get a lot of adrenaline in your body, and that's going to last usually for a couple hours, and you want to be able to burn that off. And so there's two things here. One is just the burning off of the excess energy through exercise when it comes on, and the other is not letting the anxiety control you, because if you have anxiety and you feel it coming on, and you're afraid to go outside or do something, that's you submitting and giving your power over to the anxiety. And so by taking your power back, you focus it and channel that excess energy into some type of activity that is low intensity but long duration. That's you saying, no, I'm not going to listen to my anxiety. I'm not going to let it have me just sit here in a stew of my own fearful thoughts and adrenaline and just get all worked up and shaky, and my chest tightens and my hands go numb and I go into a panic attack. You're actually going to take that excess energy and channel it into something. And in my last video, I said that whenever that excess energy builds up too much, your body has to discharge it. And if you don't do anything, it will discharge on its own, and you will probably have a panic attack or something similar, and you'll think something's wrong with you, but it's not. It's just excess energy leaving the body. So you can take control back by channeling anxiety into activity to a level that you can handle without aggravating the anxiety anymore. And I've worked out for many, many years, since I was 16, so like 30 years. And when my anxiety really started to come on, it was actually high intensity workouts that would trigger these panic attacks. I'd start to work out at an intense level, and then I'd have to go run into the bathroom and have a panic attack because I didn't want anyone to see me that I was going nuts. So low intensity, long duration. And the thing that saved me really was just, I took up hiking. I just went and I just burned off all of that excess energy, and I kept hiking and I kept hiking. And that was sort of the first stages of me, at least if you can't control the energy, you can sort of channel the direction into something that's a little bit more positive for you. So exercise was a big role, had a huge role in it, in my recovery from anxiety, but you just have to be careful about what types of exercise that you do. Okay, diet. For anxiety, nothing that stimulates you. No coffee, no sugar. Those are the two primary stimulants in most people's diets, because caffeine, obviously very stimulating. So is sugar, so they have to be eliminated from the diet. And with anxiety, the natural tendency is to want to grab for booze and cigarettes and weed, because those are natural depressants. They bring you back down. So in the beginning, I'm not going to say do anything with those, but over time, those are things that you want to consider weeding off over time, because they do have harmful effects on your body, and they still are coping mechanisms, and they cover up what's really under the surface. And as long as you're taking those, they are masking something. And so over time, when you're ready, maybe not in the beginning, you start to gradually wean off of those, and then more anxiety will come up, and then you'll have to focus. You'll have to be able to cope with that and deal with that, but just be careful with the weed and the alcohol and the cigarettes. Those can very easily be overdone or turn into addictions as coping mechanisms for anxiety. Minerals, Magnesium, calming mineral; calcium, very calming mineral; and zinc. Those are the three minerals that bring your body down, your nervous system down. B12 is also very, very important for your nervous system and keeping your nervous system settled and relaxed. So magnesium supplements are good, calcium supplements are good. You do want to obviously get those through your diet first, but for maybe a couple of years you may need some help from the supplementation. Again, they're not going to have a dramatic effect immediately, but over time they can be just another thing that sort of chips away at it, and that's what we want to do. We just want to get a whole bunch of little things that we can do a little bit at a time to chip away at the overall picture. Okay, so the environment that you're in. If you have anxiety, the environment that you are in is very, very important to your state of being, because we all mimic and match and attune to the environment that we are in. That means if you are in an environment that is hyperstimulating, you're not going to be comfortable there, because it's going to bring the anxiety up. If your work is hyperstimulating, or there's a really, really busy environment at work, you probably may not like being there, because it's just going to make you feel worse, because you're going to attune to that naturally, and that will just bring you up even more. So the best that you can, keep yourself in calm, relaxed environments. And a lot of the times this might mean being by yourself. It's one of the things that I had to do for quite some time. I just had to withdraw into being by myself, because being out and in hyperstimulated environments, I live in a city and there's so much hyper busy energy here, it just got me too wound up. So I did have to cut back on my hours at work. Unfortunately, not everybody can do that, but if you can, if there's any way you can settle down with the amount of work that you do, that's always beneficial for sure. But that's usually one of the last things to come in. There are ways you can develop and skills, tools you can use to help keep yourself calm at work, and breathing is the main one. But in the very beginning stages, removing yourself from hyper stimulating environments. That also means TV late at night. That means any TV show that you watch that causes your body to tense up, or gets your mind so wound up that you can't go to bed at night. So watching comedies is good. Anything that makes you laugh, something like that. But anything that is very intense, that's gripping, that's drama, that just pulls you in and gets you really intense, I would tend to stay away from those, at least for a time. They do have, a stronger effect than you think. All right, sleep is one of the most important things that you can do for your anxiety. When you have anxiety, you are going to need more sleep than everybody else. You're probably going to need upwards of 10 hours a night to feel restored and refreshed, because what happens is when you're in an anxious state, your body goes through a lot of resources. There's a lot of adrenaline being produced. You use up minerals and vitamins and carbohydrates faster, so you're depleting your body faster and faster. And as this happens over time, you're going to get possibly more tired and more fatigued. You're going to polarize between really tired states and then really hyper anxious states, and that's the sign that your body is starting to deplete. So you're going to need a lot more sleep, and the key here is of course sleep in absolute darkness. Shut the lights off 9 o'clock. Have some blackout blinds, because when you have complete darkness, your body starts to release higher and higher levels of melatonin, and that melatonin actually shuts down your adrenaline and your cortisol production. So you want to balance the hormones here to set your body in a healing, relaxed state, and darkness is the key. And I know there's a lot today about blue blockers and sunglasses, and you can wear them and they block the blue light because that's stimulating, and that allows you to continue working later at night and then be able to get to bed. I don't like that at all. Working late on the computer is still a problem, and it still shortens the amount of sleep that you need. If you have anxiety, just shut everything off, all your electronic devices, no TV, no computer, keep your room as dark as possible. Like, shut those things off at like 9 or 9:30, and you really need to be in darkness as much as possible. So sleep is really, really important. If you are beating yourself up because you're feeling tired all the time, it's because you need more sleep. So get as much sleep as you can, winding your system down for a long period of time. I remember I would sleep easily 10 hours a night for probably a year and a half or two. I still feel better if I get 9 rather than just 8, but you will need sleep and lots of it. Okay, breathing meditation, talked about that a little bit. Nature, extremely peaceful. You may have a natural affinity just to want to get out and be in nature because we take on the energy of the environment we're in. If you're in a city and it's a very busy energy and you take yourself out into nature and go there for a while, you will find that your mind and body settle down tremendously because you are naturally matching the vibe and harmonizing with that environment. And nature is so peaceful and so relaxing. Spend as much time as you can getting out into nature, getting away from the city if you can, and even if it's just going to the beach or taking a hike or going for a walk in the woods or something, camping, going to a cottage, all of these things are really going to set the stage for your system to settle down. Okay, friends and relationships. This is also going to be tricky, like work, to negotiate, but when you have anxiety, your confidence is not always the best. There can be a lot of self-judgment and there can be a lot of self-judgment, and if you have friends that are not supporting you and helping you, they actually may not be, you may have to push them away for a while, because a lot of friends, even though you're friends, can still make fun of you in an underhanded way, joke around and put you down. Anyone who does that kind of stuff really is not helping your situation. So you may have to detach with some friendships for a while until you can come back at them in a healthier state. But establishing boundaries and not letting people bring your confidence down is really important. Being around people also that are, some people are just very buzzy with their energy. They're just so hyper. That's not good for you either. It's better to be around people that are just settled and calm and relaxed. And the other thing is, with your relationships, friendships, people in your family, watch out. This one you're not going to like too much, but watch out for people that enable your behavior. Because when your anxiety is high, you get very afraid of certain things and you don't want to do them. And someone comes up to you and says, oh, that's okay, just don't worry about it, just ignore it, or go, just let it go away or something. That is actually very counterproductive, because once again, that is you letting the anxiety control you and control your behaviors. And just, you have to be maybe if it's in your family, you can't be get rid of them totally, but you just have to watch for that type of enabling behavior, because really what it comes down to is there are going to be some fears that you will have to face, and you will need support for that. And having people around you that say, I believe in you, that support you, but also push you just a little bit beyond your boundaries, so you can have the direct experience of building your confidence and not letting your anxieties control you, is very important. And there's going to be a little bit of friction there, because if someone around you is trying to help you by pushing you beyond your boundaries, you're going to resist. You're not going to like it because it's going to feel uncomfortable. So you're going to hate that person, but it's beneficial. And it's better to have that friction, because anger is actually a good way to overcome anxiety if you can channel that. But just be aware of that. There might be some people in your sphere that will enable your behavior, and that kind of keeps you suppressed and down and doesn't allow you to grow and thrive. And so the overall pattern of behavior that you have to look for when you have anxiety is one of avoidance. Avoiding your problems only ever makes anxiety worse. The more you avoid your problems, the more you give in power to that anxiety, and it becomes greater and greater and greater in terms of its ability to control you. And so you really have to be aware of things that you are avoiding and just leaving. And the more you leave them over time, the more you actually start to worry about the consequences of what might happen should you ever have to face that. And those consequences just build up in your head, and they just keep building up in your head, build up a stronger charge in your body. And so look for when you are avoiding your problems. If you have something that you have to face, but you're deliberately avoiding it, then you have to ask for help. That is one of the best ways to face your issues and face your fears and face your problems, is with the support of other people. And that was my biggest mistake, is that I tried to do this alone. I tried to get through it all by myself, and I could have made my life so much easier and gone through it so much faster had I been comfortable with asking for support from other people. So that's the main thing. Watch out for that pattern of avoidance, and you got to break that pattern as much as you can. Okay, I think that's it. So those are some lifestyle things. Look at the overall picture, and you just got to bring everything down from being hyper and wound up down to settled and calm. And it's just chipping away a little bit at a time, every day at a time. All of those lifestyle factors: exercise, nutrition, sleep, work, relationships, friendships, pattern of avoidance, being in nature, like everything. It just takes a look at your entire scope of your life and where can you make the little adjustments that bring you back to center. All right, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. If you like the video, hit like and subscribe, and thank you very much. Much love to everyone.